Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Did you know you can support the channel by joining? Or join my Patreon? Something to think about. Now onto the stories. Case file number 983, written by Dull Yesterday 2655. The voicemail from another universe. This occurred about 3 years ago. I had a position as a buyer, and as such, would receive tons of cold calls and emails from people trying to get our company to try their products for resale. Also important, our company had a digital, voice over IP, not sure of the correct terminology, phone system. There was one central number, and it followed a phone tree to multiple offices via internet connection. Voicemails were available on our big office phones, but the recording would also be sent to our emails. So one day, I received a voicemail from a phone number I recognized as someone who had been attempting to get a hold of me to sell me their products. Oddly, the voicemail was something like 15 minutes long. Curious, I began to listen to it. The message begins with just static and the sound of rustling. Seems like a classic case of butt dial, or maybe they forgot to hang up when the voicemail clicked. I fast-forwarded the message just to see if anything was ever heard, and yes, suddenly a clear voice. They're having a one-sided conversation. I think, ooh, these can be fun sometimes. Except the one-sided conversation is clearly with me. The person on the phone is referencing my, then recent, maternity leave, our company by name, a few other pretty identifying details that currently escape me. They'd stop speaking and it would be blank air, and then answer a pertinent question that I would have asked in that kind of conversation. Clearly speaking to me, but I never spoke to this company or this person. I did receive additional emails from them later on that were clearly initial attempts at communication and not a follow-up to a conversation. I checked with my coworkers in case somehow, somewhere, their conversation got picked up in my voicemail, and nope. Coworkers and husband were equally confused, but with zero explanation, we all just had to move on. Case notes are file 983, the voicemail from another universe. So I think the obvious answer people would give to this is that the man butt dialed you, but he was just rehearsing interacting with you because, he wanted to close the deal. So it would make sense that he would rehearse his pitch, basically. It's probably something I would do myself, being an introvert. I like to plan my social interactions. It's the plight of the introvert, but I like who I am. Now, it doesn't quite add up as simply as that, because he knew intimate details about you, like you having been on maternity leave and other details that shouldn't be possible to know. I mean, unless he stalked you on Facebook and LinkedIn and other sites like that. It's conceivable maybe he could find a lot of details, but not to that extent, I don't think. And then later on sending emails in a sense that, if it was a call attempt, why would he rehearse over the phone? And then it also means that he had your number saved in his phone to have accidentally butt dialed you? No, I think it's actually more likely it's just a jumbling of the information that's out there. It's energy, signals that we interact with through our phones, the calls. It's just specific organization of vibrations and waves that we're able to decode on our phone. Who's to say they can't travel between parallel universes? It explains a lot of weird stuff, if you grant that axiom. Case file number 984, written by tonysubliminalfan. Their faces keep changing. I've had people who I've met before suddenly change appearances. Like, not just hair color or style, but eye color, the whole shapes of their faces, bone structures, body shapes, and voices, and over a very short time, so I don't think it is a complete plastic surgery makeover. People looked at me like I'm crazy when I insisted a coworker's girlfriend looked and sounded completely different than before. I just assumed he had brought his new girlfriend that happened to have the name of his previous one. Only her name is left intact. That's a completely new person, and yet no one has noticed her shift from a bigger bone frame, naturally curly blonde blue-eyed girl, to a thinner bone, straight-haired brown-eyed girl. Spooky. Either it's a glitch, or they use witchcraft spells, or YouTube subliminals, or something. What about you? What do you think? Case notes are file 984. Their faces kept changing. I've read a few comments saying this might be propopagnosia, which is a condition where people aren't able to accurately comprehend faces. They can't place faces. Everyone looks basically the same. one face is interchangeable with the next one. But then I don't think that fits, because if you weren't able to discern one face from another, one person from another, it wouldn't be that faces are changing, it's just that you wouldn't be able to recognize anyone, by their facial features anyways. Also, you indicated their voice changes, their height, everything, so it's not just their face. This reminds me of a story where there was a person living across the street, husband and wife. I'm not sure, I think one of them was a cop. But anyways, one day came home and the wife was a different person entirely. Before she was tall and then she was slender after, shorter, not just a different hair color or anything like that. The only possible thing is witness protection, but that wouldn't really apply in the job. You wouldn't have to switch persons in the job, they would just quit and go live somewhere else in witness protection. So yeah, I'm not sure where this glitch would fall. It wouldn't be quantum immortality because it's happening so frequently to you, not just one person. Unless you're dying so often that you're switching universes like changing clothes. I suppose some people might perish often and then wind up in different universes all the time. That would be unsettling, without really understanding what's going on. Bonus file, written by Scared Expression 444. The darkness was impersonating my mom. When I was a kid, my mom and I lived with my grandparents in their 3-story house. It had a basement, a ground floor, and a second floor. To give context, there was a living room directly in front of the stairs leading upstairs, so you could see my mom's room on the left, important for later, and my grandparents' room on the right. My room was further down the 2nd-story hall, but I spent a lot of time alone and with my uncle in the basement. For more context, the basement was a huge rectangle with one room directly to the left of the stairs, my uncle's room, and one room in the far back left corner, storage room, also important for later. With context out of the way, time for the actual story. This all happened when I was 8 or 9, can't remember exactly. It was around when Halo 3 came out. The first time it happened is honestly the worst. I was home, sick, from school. In reality, I just wanted to play Halo, bro. But everyone in the house worked, so I was alone and my uncle was at school. The only Xbox in the house was in the basement. So naturally, when everyone left, I got up and went to go play Halo. I'm down there for a few hours playing games happily, and all of a sudden, the storage room I mentioned earlier creaks open ever so slightly. Not completely, just enough to see a slit of darkness and plain as day. I hear my mom call me from what sounded like the furthest corner of the storage room, saying she needed help putting something away. My mom wasn't home at the time and I knew this. I didn't turn anything off. I bolted upstairs and laid on the couch until my uncle got home from school. He asked why I left the Xbox on and he thought I was sick and laughed at me. I just laughed back and said, "My bad, won't happen again." The only other time this happened was actually during a family dinner. We had cousins and pretty much our entire family over for a holiday. My cousins and I were playing with Nerf guns in the living room. They got hungry and went to get more food, so I sat by myself in the living room, reloading my magazines with darts, when something caught my eye upstairs. Same year as last encounter, I'm still 8 or 9 in this scenario. It was my mom's room door. It had opened, and because it was like 8 p.m., it was dark upstairs because no one was up there, so no lights were on. But my mom had walked out from the darkness and kind of waved me over to her with a weird smile on her face. I yelled to her, "Why?" And she just kept waving me over, but I clearly saw my mom, so I didn't question her again and started walking over. But as soon as I got to the start of the stairs, I looked to my right and saw my mom talking with my aunt at the dinner table. So I walked over and asked her if she'd been upstairs and she said no. Went back to the living room, looked up the stairs and her doors were closed again. Nothing like that has ever happened again, but it still gives me the chills when I think about it. Case notes for the bonus file. The darkness was impersonating my mom. So here's the real rub of the story, the real question. Was this your mom astrally projecting a couple times? Or was it an actual entity trying to lure you into darkness? Both times it was luring you into a spot where there was no visible light. I don't think it was your mom in that case. The story gives me the creeps, to be honest. I don't know what the entity wanted to do with you, but nothing good, I suspect. And this is coming from an eternal optimist, so yeah. It's odd though that the entity never tried to lure you anywhere again after that. I wonder why they stopped. Maybe there is an aspect of energy, like I mentioned the other day. Maybe they require a lot of energy to phase into this pocket dimension, and they can't sustain it forever. And maybe they don't want to be known or alert anyone, so they wouldn't try to draw it from the circuitry in the home or anything like that, give away their position, and then maybe have to suffer a cleansing. And now for the quote of the day. If you're going through hell, keep going. Winston Churchill. Like the video, subscribe. See you tomorrow.